Welcome back, and we continue our conversation on the use of mobile marketing by brick and mortar and virtual companies in the e-commerce space. So, Amar, now, you spoke about you're also building brands, and therefore you use TV. One of the sort of debates is, can't brands be built on the digital platforms as well? Why do you need TV at all?
I think there's a $1 million or $1 billion question, I think, in that, because I think that time is finally arriving in India. If you go back to the internet penetration in India, it used to be 6% or 7%. That's why most internet brands used to focus on both
Traditional
digital
media.
and traditional. I think now we are at 30-40% stage, and with data access becoming even cheaper, I think the time spent by even the newbie internet users is actually increasing. So overall, I think there are the two ways I look at businesses. One is the battle of the minds, which I think the people who are yet to come to the internet are still not yet there. You cannot target them if they're not using internet.
Sure.
I think you have to find out.
That's the problem with the category leader.
Absolutely.
Sure.
The other is actually battling the market share or the people already there. For that, I believe the stage is coming where you can today build a brand on purely on digital. The question is how many people are doing it as yet. I think that's a test. People will probably do it over this year and the next few years to come. At OLX, we are looking at also spending more time on online now compared to offline, and we want to figure that out in terms of what could we do to basically continue our brand building journey or brand conversation or brand story via digital or via mobile. And there comes the thing about content marketing. I think the shift which has happened because people are now consuming content from various, on their mobiles actually. So for us, TV or any other medium was also developing content. Of course, that used to be a bit more paid. We were looking for ways how we can actually pass on content in a more media efficient way. And there are many social networks and so on which allows stuff to spread so virally. So you can develop great content and it can go. That's a great way of marketing and building a brand.
Amit, you're with a company which has built brands in various stages of evolution of media, so to say. One was when it was completely legal to advertise alcohol in India, all the way to today. Like you said, you have to use trademark extensions and so on and so forth. And now you're saying 15 to 20% of your money on digital. Where do you see this heading with your own budget? Where do you see it going?
I think it's a function of how quickly consumer behavior scales up.
Right.
In terms of, so I think marketers will go wherever consumers are consuming context,
right.
And marketers migrate to mediums that provide better measurability for the kind of campaigns that they want to run. So to me, it's not a choice between digital.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt. Does mobile and digital give you more comfort from a measurability point of view than traditional media?
I think the way I think about it, in some senses, yes.
Right.
In some senses, mobile and digital give you more measurability in the sense that you've got a better understanding of who has actually viewed you.
Right.
And to what extent have they viewed you. You've got the ability to target. And therefore, in some senses...
Do you wish traditional media took the trouble to give you this?
And these boundaries are blurring, aren't we? As I start watching Netflix on television or start watching Amazon Prime on television, I'm sure these boundaries will really blur.
Right.
So I think the question is not whether one medium will dominate the other, because that's going to be led by consumer behavior. We know that we will become an increasingly mobile-led world because mobile as a device with all the entire ecosystem supporting it in terms of creating applications of value will continue to grow and explode, and therefore consumers will continue to increase the time spent on mobile, and more consumers will come in and access internet through mobile. So that's going to happen. I think the question is, what's the marketing objective? What's the size of ambition you have? Does digital, with its hyper-local and micro-targeting, allow you to feed that ambition?
Right.
If it does, you could clearly build a brand through digital and have TV as a support medium. So I think it's going to be horses for courses rather than one size fits all.
Sure. Anusha, one of the problems that all marketers face today is that companies like yours have become commodities. In a funny way. I'd love both of them to react. Every day they get 200 proposals from companies in the digital space, social media space, saying we can do this, and they all say we can do it cheaper. It's a problem. So how do you convince your clients that you deliver more than somebody else who claims to deliver the same as you?
See, this whole domain is a lot more cost effective, is something that every marketer feels, and it's a fact.
Right.
It's cost effective relative to many other things. I think today the marketer is actually only looking for value.
Right.
In fact, I'm going to kind of part myself from this word called commodity, because I think gone is the time of, just saying let's do digital for the sake of doing digital. I think a real marketer today is actually looking for real value. How do I get real value? How do I measure this real value? What can I do with it? And if you're able to convince a marketer on this real value, I think the job is done. I don't think there's an issue at all about, proving one over the other.
Right.
Really.
Amrit, you're one of the few companies which spends a lot of money on the content side. Most people seem to think that digital means let's make cheap content. Get a video out at 1 lakh, get a video out at 2 lakhs. You've never done that, and you continue not to do that. So what is your advice to those who say, yeah, digital is sasta mein kara do? So what is your advice to people like that?
I think content is about understanding what your main message is and how do you package that message in a story that consumers want to consume. Yeah? You need to ensure you spend the appropriate amount for landing the right message. And you need to ensure so one is about having clarity on the message that you want to land and the context you want to land it in. And the other is ensuring you get the best available price without compromising quality. And there are two separate questions.
Absolutely.
Right, that you need to solve for. So it's not about cheap content. It is not about sasta tikau. Because consumers will consume content that entertains them, that thrills them, that fits with what they're looking for, either in that leisure time or otherwise. So that's the way I would view it and think about it. Going back to, I think, value and what Anu said. To me, value, there are two parts to a relationship with partners. One is to understand how do you work together better, and increasingly the world's becoming so complex that not all of us can do everything. So each one of us needs to be clear, what is it that I can do as a marketer, what is it that I need to own as a marketer, and who are the partners that I can really partner with and create a ways of working where we jointly solve for the same brand growth problems. And do each of us have the same skin in the game? Do we share the same goals? I think that's where we will move. And again, there is, yes, a pricing question on that relationship, and you have to have transparent process to discover that for that value, what's the right pricing. And therefore, I would kind of side with Anuj saying that, it's not about commoditization of
right.
solutions being offered in this place.
Yeah, Amar, you're also unusual in the e-com space in the sense you also had long partnerships with your communication partners. Yeah. You like them, you stick with them, you don't call for a pitch every 6 months. Mm-hmm. So why is that? Why do you stick with your same?
No, we have been, we call for pitches all the time. Sure. I think we just don't do it every 6 months.
Right.
But over the last few years, I think we have done pitches across partners, and I think the pitches we are doing is not necessarily generally to look at changing partners, but in terms of looking at what new is coming to the table. Because as you are evolving, I think we're talking about the changing media consumption. I think the new waves of content and new waves of content consumption is coming in picture, and not everybody is all the time ready from the partner side or from the brand side to be ready to be able to answer all those questions. So there is a lot of discovery, a lot of new development, and lots of innovation you need to continuously do to get better in what is happening. And that is a time when you try to figure out from all partners whom you work with or the new partners who are on the day to figure out who could be your potential next partner. And that's a constant discovery process you go along. But that said, I think to answer the content question, also to expand, I think the content marketing piece, it's also evolving very fast. Somebody gave me a great advice when we started OLX marketing 5-6 years back, is that you should produce great content because a lot of money is going to ride on that content. It was in reference to TV.
Yeah.
I think it's becoming much more relevant because now your content has to move without sometimes media cost. So it has to be viable, it has to be great content. So I think that content being better now is more relevant than probably before, and I think companies should invest in that.
Right.
That said, you can continuously make content. The good thing about content marketing nowadays is that you can experiment a lot of stuff. So you can produce content at a cheap cost sometimes.
Again, cheap. That's a
and sometimes in-house,
yeah?
sometimes from various partners.
Right.
But idea is the difficult job is to work with great partners, like Anusha mentioned. I think to figure out how do you put this all together. Because in the end of it, content marketing can make your brand guidelines or your brand story pretty distorted if you don't tie it together. Because at one great thing what I'm seeing today is that not only you are producing content, the users are producing content about your brand also. So the idea is, how do you control that? It's extremely difficult today, and I think that's the question which most marketers and most brands should look at.
Right. I'm going to ask Anusha the last question anyway. So
and before that, can I just
sure.
add to what these two gentlemen said? I think today the consumer in the digital social space is looking for authenticity of content.
Right.
You know, nobody likes to be preached at. You know, you don't want preachy content. You want something that's extremely natural, real, and that is where the social digital space is moving really.
Right.
Obviously seen on a mobile. So it's very important to create content that the consumer is seeking rather than create content that the marketer wants to create.
Right.
And that's the difference.
Consumers
so therefore,
speak, not producers speak.
Yeah, so therefore, it is possible to create very authentic, candid content in low cost. I don't think low cost should be the hook. I think good content is the hook, and it can come at both extremes of cost, really.
Right. So now I want to ask you the last question for this panel. How much of your time are you ending up spending educating your clients?
Oh, actually, I spend most of my time personally educating a client, and I believe that this is extremely important. One of the biggest challenges that I notice is that marketers, need to try new ways of working. And while this change is happening in many different ways, there is still a lot of comfort trying and doing the known, which is your traditional practices of marketing, really. So therefore, this whole collaborative partnership, and which includes sharing of knowledge, is extremely critical, and I spend a lot of my time actually doing that.
Thank you so much, Amrit. Thank you, Anu. Thank you, Amar.
Thank you.
And we'll be back next week with more lessons in mobile marketing. We hope you enjoyed this one. Thank you.